Let me see. Okay, we are live, and it takes a few people. It takes a few people. It takes a few minutes for people to come. Okay, so did Alethea prepare you that I have like a little game that I like to play with people?
Nope. I have not been prepared for this in any way, form, or fashion. I'd like to let you know I'm also hungry. So my responses might not be together. So just let you know.
Greetings, greetings. How you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing?
I'm
Good.
good.
As I said, man hungry on a Friday morning.
Okay, hey, that's a different category. So I was gonna do a music category. So maybe you can play my game with me. So
Mm,
let's
mm,
see. It's gonna be easy. It'll be easy.
that's women always say that, and then we men are like, what happened? I'm just saying.
Okay, so you're gonna be my first contestant. So you
Who
can do
Rob?
it.
Who Rob? Who Rob? Rob is gonna
No,
be
no,
first.
no, you.
Oh,
No,
You,
man. Rob just come on the line. Can't do that to me.
okay, so Jason, you be my first contestant. So it's this game is Black Love. It's real easy. I'm gonna give you a category. I need
Mhm.
you to name 5 things in that category in 10 seconds. Here's the
Wow.
catch. Five
Wow.
things, 10 seconds. You cannot use any filler words. No ahs, us, so's, none of that. And what are some filler words, Alethea, in patois? No filler words in patois either.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Same thing. Yeah.
You ready?
No. Hey,
No, man. You ready? Ready, rock steady. Come, come.
Come on, you can do it. You can do
All
it.
right, let's do our one. Let's
Okay.
put to our one.
So your look, and I say so. Your category is your favorite foods that come from Jamaica. Favorite foods that come from Jamaica. 5 foods, 10 seconds. No us, ahs, or so's. Go.
Cold foot, ackee and saltfish, curry shrimp, curry lobster, jerk pork.
You said but you did good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
We're so used to doing it, but just a fun game. Very nice.
My brother Rob, you gonna do it?
Yeah.
You ready?
I'm sorry.
You ready? You gonna do it too?
I'll try it. I'm always saying yeah
right,
so
exactly. It's like breathing.
it's just like it's like eating. You can't even eat without saying
Exactly.
So I'll try it. Let's see how
Okay.
successful I am.
Let's see. Okay, so your category is music genres. 5 music genres in 10 seconds. Go.
House, reggae, hip hop, jazz, calypso.
Okay, you did that.
All right.
All right. That was good.
Yeah,
Congratulations, gentlemen.
I think you and Rob, have a thing going on. I think you didn't have the questions before he came in. The answers right in front of him, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so since Alethea got you into this, do you think we should let her do it too?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, great. Boom.
I
Okay.
believe in gender equality.
Gender equality. Okay,
Yeah,
gender
I like
equality.
that. Yeah, gender equality. Let's go.
Okay. Do y'all have a category for her? What's your category for her?
What's the category for her?
Yeah, tell her a category.
Jamaican dances.
Okay.
Oh,
5 Jamaican dances, 10 seconds. Go.
Bogo, butterfly. Yeah.
That sounded like that was a filler word.
Row the boat.
Stop.
Couldn't do it.
You did it. Sorry.
And that was a good category. I just
How you make the game and you can't even do it?
I know. No, it just
Hold on. What I want to understand, how you never just go down the line? Bogle, butterfly, Urkel, Screechy, and then row the boat. You're good.
man.
Too
Couldn't
late.
remember.
Like they're they're right behind each other.
Right.
World
I
dance.
mean, and it's in the song. I was trying to remember songs, but it's all right. Good job. Good job.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Ife Tayo Ojelade, and you can see that my
Hold
guests.
on. Okay, repeat that again. Dr. what?
That's a little tongue twister there.
Yeah. Go again, and slow it down.
Okay, so slow it down with my Yankee accent. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Ife Tayo Ojelade. People call me Dr. Ife when I'm on the radio. Okay.
Dr. Ife.
Okay.
Dr. Ife on the radio.
Yeah, I'm not going to even pretend to try.
But it's a good radio name because Ife is love. So that's like Dr. Love. See?
No, I know I'm
Ife.
good with it, Dr. Ife. I'm just not going to try and do the rest. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And as you can see, my guests are here with a lot of energy. So I am not going to stay very long. I just wanted to welcome them. We are closing out Caribbean American Heritage Month with ongoing conversations that are impactful to throughout the Caribbean diaspora. And today we're going to talk about music, something that I absolutely love. And so I'm going to hand this conversation over to Healing Paradigms office manager, Alethea Bonello. But first, I want to just say thank you, my brothers, Rob Swinger, Jason Skywalker. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation. I'm going to go away, and Alethea, you can take it over.
Thank you, Dr. Ife. Good afternoon, everybody. You see that the energy is high already. We're going to have a great discussion, and I want to first give thanks to Marissa Williams of To Be Caribbean, who was instrumental in bringing our guest on the show today. So I am excited to have with us Jason Skywalker, who is the founder of the longest running Caribbean show in Georgia, Caribbean Runnings. He's also the editor of the first Caribbean magazine, Caribbean Express magazine, for 8 years, as well as the creator of Caribbean Focus TV and Life, Rhythm and Spice TV, as well as the former president of the Metro Atlanta Caribbean Students Association, founder and former president of United for Jamaica, founder of Caribbean Georgia Vote, as well as a Georgia representative for the Jamaica Diaspora Conference, among so many other things. And we also have, and I'm going to ask Rob Swinger if he would introduce himself.
Hold on. Did my man leave any other occupations for other people in Jamaica?
Yeah, man, there's enough things in there, but I said I have to stop at one point, so we can let you come in and shine. So.
Share the love, bro. Share the love.
So, Rob,
I'm sorry, you was asking me. What was you asking me again?
I was asking you to introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. My name is Rob Swinger. I'm from Brooklyn. My parents are from Grenada, West Indies.
The Caribbean island of Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, which part? Flatbush. So yeah, I am also the board op for the Chub Rock show. I'm also the producer. I'm also a producer that has worked with many people in the hip hop community or the hip hop genre. I'm formerly with the producing crew named Trackmasters. I've also done many artists besides Big Daddy Kane, Biggie Smalls. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, awesome. Just in a little nutshell, just to give you a brief of who I am. There you go.
Excellent. We are excited to have both of you here. Wanted to give just a little bit of background, because when we hear about Caribbean music, people often immediately think about reggae. But there are so many different genres, and I just want to lift them up quickly to you. From the islands of Antigua and Barbuda, there is Benna. In Bahamas, there's Goombay, Junkanoo, and Reka Scrape. In Barbados, there's folk, tuk, sproge, fling, calypso, jazz, raga, soca. In Belize, there's punta, chumba, rockdown. In Cuba, of course, there's Afro-Cuban jazz, bata, boogaloo, reggae en español. In Dominica, there's Shanta Mas and Jingping. In Dominican Republic, bachata, merengue, house, and salsa. In Guadeloupe, there's zouk. Guyana, there's chutney, soca, and shanto. In Haiti, big up to my Haitian DJ Quest, that he would tell you there is compa, merengue, musique racine, as well as others. In Honduras, there's reggaeton, garifuna, and salsa. In Jamaica, reggae, mento, dub, kumina, nyabingi, rocksteady, lovers rock, and roots reggae. In Martinique, there's bele and cadence, excuse me. Puerto Rico, there's bomba, salsa, romantica, and guaracha. In St. Kitts and Nevis, there's big drum and steel pan. St. Lucia, there's jouet and dub and conte. In Suriname, there's Kaseko. In Trinidad and Tobago, there's calypso, carizo, chutney, and soca. In Venezuela, there is merengue. And in the Virgin Islands, there is carizo and quiedo. So there are so many different styles and genres to the Caribbean, just as varied as the history and of the colonizers who came in, who brought the enslaved Africans, as well as the Taino and the Arawak indigenous people, as well as the European influences that created what we know as Caribbean music today. So, want to start off the conversation is asking, how does music express culture and our connection to the Caribbean? Either one of them.
I'll say it's definitely the instruments that are used, and which is basically the drums. Most of the the genres that you had expressed, they're all, the focus point is the drums. You might have the other elements of maybe a guitar or a flute or whatever it might be, but the essential part of it, the quintessential part of it, is the drums. So that's why I think that's pretty much it. That's
excellent, especially to the continent. That's it right there, right? Yeah, the African influence is the overarching. Yeah. What about you, Jason?
Well, to add to that, yeah, I agree with Rob on that. But not just it's first of all, it's a unifying factor. It is the drums from West Africa is the unifying factor of the entire region, because even indigenous people, there were Caribs, there was Inca, there's Mayas, there's Arawaks. There are different indigenous people in different countries, but what connected all of us is the drums that were brought from West Africa. Which is the constant thing. And even as many genres as you name, there's still more genres that weren't mentioned. And then, of course, that allowed for the communications of the stories of the different countries to go throughout the Caribbean, even when when our music form wasn't even a commercial entity yet. You know, the fact that I can hear a Bajan artist singing a Surinamese song called Faluma on the beat that came from West Africa that is now soca. Like, that's an amazing, that is a story by itself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, you're jumping right in. And as you identify yourself as a Pan-African, we really want to make those linkages because it really starts from there. Not only was the drum used in music, but as you said, as a form of communication. To be able to go ahead and discuss ways of planning and plotting an escape for the enslaved Africans in these various countries. So delving deeper, so the foundation is the drum. But what are some other instruments in the Caribbean that may be distinct? Because although you can play a guitar, the way a guitar is used in a reggae song or a salsa song is much different than it's used in American genres here in folk. So talk about the other instruments, even in reggae, and the difference between the beats and the offbeats that is used in combining the different songs. Would you gentlemen like to expound on the instruments as well, not just the drums, but other instruments that really make it a very distinctive cultural sound in the Caribbean?
Well, the first thing comes to my mind is the steel pan, and the coconuts. I'm not sure what the name of it, but the coconuts and
calabash.
The calabash. There you go. That I'm not going to take them all. You could you could use some of them. I mean, just those two came off my mind. Those the calabash and the steel pan. I'm not sure if he has some more he could
So
add.
so this is where you begin to see the differentiation between the countries. So so steel pan is very unique. Trinidad is the only country that created the steel pan, which comes out of how French, English, Indian, Caribs, African cultures all mixed together. That created that, which speaks to the coming together, especially of the Aboriginal Indian and African people on the island, to creating that pan. Like it literally came out of instruments from West Africa, specific tribes in West Africa, and they decided to morph it into this thing that became the seal pan. Then now in Jamaica, which where jazz and R&B was hugely influencing everything back in Jamaica in the 30s, you would now see horns, the way they're using the horns with the reggae beat, and then that which is of course what gave ska, but more importantly gave the offbeat that you're talking about. It was the horn's responsibility to create that offbeat. Dun, 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 that's the blow. And that became the new, and that became ska, which evolved into rocksteady, which evolved into reggae, right? So this is where, now when you talk about the use of instrumentation, this is where things become diversified. Because in Suriname, what you see them using is the conch horn, which is the Maroons are known for, and indigenous people using the conch horns along with the drum beat created the Surinamese music forms that we just discussed a while ago. Kaseko, Kawina, Baiti, Ghana. So, that's where, the use of instruments. Now, in terms of reggae and the guitar, that came out of desire to make the bass more round. And that's why you see we use in the guitar the way we use the guitar in reggae music. There's a fascination from the get go of using the guitar to enhance the bass of the music forms. And since money wasn't like selling the records wasn't really happening for us at the time, it was the dance that you made money. Like you throw a party and your sound system had records that came from your studio. And if your studio has enough of a good name, then people come to your dance. There really wasn't much selling of the actual records, Jamaican records. So it was all about making your sound system have that round bass that reggae music is known for, where the instruments and the guitar and the drums conspired to create that bass. Because how you made money was people coming to your dance, and people are to dance because of how your speakers sounded and the exclusive music that you're playing, which was in the 50s, and so on.
Awesome. So you're getting into a really exciting part of really Jamaican music, but the sound system and the sound clashes. So if you can continue and talk a little bit about the sound systems, you talked about the importances to the dance, but then now the sound clashes that came out of that as well. And then Rob, I'd like you to pick it up, because many people don't know that rap and hip hop is directly derived from the Jamaican sound clashes and DJ Kool Herc. So I'm gonna let you pick that up. But Jason, would you continue with the sound clashes?
So all right. So we have this problem in Jamaica and a lot of Caribbean islands where we call foreign mind. In other words, we don't appreciate our own. So our music wasn't on the radio. That wasn't happening.
Right.
So that's why the sound system became important. If you wanted to hear Jamaican music, you had to go to a sound system, and sound system would travel the country. What ended up happening is different people, Cox and Dodd, Stereograph, Duke Reed, Prince Buster, they built their sounds. And besides trying to sound better than the other, they would compete and have clashes. Now, those days, every sound system had their own label. And so what they would do, and their stable of artists. And what they would do is have the artists go in the studio and make a song talking about how that sound is the best sound and how the other sound are fool. Which is so which is where the clash came in. And then now you'd have your artist, that's your artist from your studio, would now clash against those artists, and all they're doing is singing lyrics, destroying each other. This is from the 50s. Like, so this is long before Cool Herc even got here. That was Clash, and that's how it evolved. And of course, the thing is, though, around 1964, when reggae was now evolving, somehow those Clash records got to England, and they were running the cut. Like, English people's minds were blown. And now it started selling, which began a totally different conversation with this thing. And it evolved into an international format where beginning in England, like even little white poor kids were following this trend, and they were battling each other in bands, which ended up creating the whole punk scene. And they used to call themselves Clash because they were following what they were seeing in Jamaica and creating their own version to it.
Wow.
You know,
Mind blown.
and no, the problem is, though, that in Jamaica it got to a level where people were actually fighting each other. This way, the conversation about the rude boy, and in the 60s, this is where this came about. It both became criminal and violent, and political, all at the same time. This is where the Wailers, and now Bob Marley was not, and I say Wailers intentionally because Bob was not the lead singer at this point. So Junior Brathwaite was the lead singer. Just in case nobody knows, it was created by two 15-year-olds, Junior Brathwaite, Beverly Kelso. That's who created what was called first the Teenagers, that became the Wailers. Anyway, here's the point. And they were on Cox and Dodge studio on label. So they were on Studio One sound system. So they were part of their arsenal when they were battling like Duke Reed or Prince Buster or anybody like that. And and then what's his name? Coxon realized, oh wait, this music is creating violence. So we need to shift course. And that's when they wrote One Love with Junior Brathwaite on the lead, not Bob. And Simmer Down with Junior Brathwaite on the lead, not Bob Marley. And the band that was playing behind them was the Scatolites, because they were a big ska band at the time. And that's kind of when that morphed into, yo, this music needs to be something that unifies people and brings peace. Anyway, but then no, this whole clashing thing evolved into, you know what? As a producer, we're still not being played on radio in Jamaica. We didn't get played on radio in Jamaica till 1988. That's a whole other story.
Wow.
Yeah, when IRFM came on, and it was a Bogart thing. Something that Peter Tosh started in 1984, but he got killed. And then 4 years later, that came online. But that's a whole other conversation. So in the 60s now, the producer's like, yo, I can't keep on paying these bands to come in, because remember, they're not making money on the records. So what he did was, you know what? I'm going to have a band come in, create an instrumental, and on that and then I'll have that instrumental digitally in the studio and put it on the flip side of the 45. And I would go into the dance hall and have people come on that instrumental and compete for me to now do a song with them. Singers, DJs, dub poets, whatever it was. And
so is that how the rhythm tracks work? Okay.
That's why the music genre is called dancehall, because this happened in a dance hall. And that's how you'd have like 10 songs on one rhythm, because once again, these records weren't selling. So the producer's like, yo, I got to save money. So let me just do one rhythm and then have everybody. And that was in the 60s, and then all of a sudden in 1968, one of the songs goes to England and starts hitting the charts. I'm still in love with you, girl.
Oh, okay, girl.
By Alton Ellis, the original version. And then that was remade in 1970 by Marcia Akins. I'm still in love with you, boy. And a whole rhythm was made with Joe Fraser. And then that's where, for the first time, the first serious dancehall hit, where "See me in my pants and ting, in step and my tank," and that one. right?
You're sparking the memory banks. You're sparking the memory banks.
Donna and Althea, Uptown Ranking. And that went number one. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the first dancehall hit internationally by two women. They were 16 years old. Went number one in England, went on the Billboard charts in the US. So although all these men them talking about the rough and tough, now 1971, two 16-year-old girls, best dancehall song in the world. And then of course that evolved. At the same time, you got a young man who is part of Stereograph Sound, who who is just carrying the records for the sound in the late 60s. And this was the time a lot of Jamaicans were going to the US because they were getting, just hard economic times. All them rude boy clashing, like it made hard times for most communities. And so Junior Brathwaite, who was at the time 16, his family was going up, so he had to go. And Coxon was crushed, and he's like, "Who is going to be my lead singer for the Wailers?" And Bob was like, "I do a lot of the vocals anyway. Put me up front. I write a lot of the lyrics, so put me up front." Although everybody preferred Peter Tosh's voice, but Bob is the one they put up front. And of course, when Chris Blackwell came, they were doing a Motown thing where they'd rotate leads. But then, of course, once Chris Blackwell came in the picture, Chris Blackwell knew white people would love Bob, so he put Bob up front. So that's all that happened. But the point is, during the same exodus of people leaving Jamaica, there's a sound named Stereograph, and there was a guy carrying around records for the sound, young youth, known fully about dancehall, learning, growing in the process. His family also went to Bronx, New York. Young boy named Kool Herc needed to make money because it was rough in the 70s in the Bronx, and so had his speakers putting on dances like back home, dancehall, reggae music, playing reggae and all that. Wasn't working. Nobody was coming out. Dances were flopping. So what he made a decision: what's running the cut? Funk music. So he flipped it, funk and disco, and then did the break beat where he would talk on the mic just like back home. And their party started building, and in the crowd they had people like Curtis Blow, Africa Bambaataa, Doc Hollywood, so on. That's where you come in, Rob.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you fill in the blanks for me very well. There's not much I need to really say, but the part where I come in is, Kool Herc has definitely did that, and I noticed it when I was a little kid because, I have a Caribbean background as well from Grenada, but still, most of my family had lived in England, so everything that you was talking about made total sense. But getting back to how, the hip hop and stuff, hip hop has pretty much kept that format that Kool Herc had came here with, which started in Jamaica, like how you said. And, you have the same thing with the battle rappers, where they're battling each other and probably do it on the same beat.
Right.
The difference that we have with that how it started out in Jamaica is that we didn't really have instruments. We weren't privy to having the instruments that we could do it. So the turntables and the old records were our instruments.
Right.
And we came into the mode of where we figured that we could use two turntables. And somebody designed this thing called the mixer to go back and forth.
Because when Kool Herc was doing it, he was doing the slide.
Exactly. He actually had two different systems.
Right. Exactly.
And he used to turn up the volume on one. Yeah. And then he turned up the volume on the other one.
Exactly.
So that's what I said. Necessity is the mother of invention. So somebody said, "Hey,
facts.
Let me move this. Let me make this thing so we could do this with one system instead of doing it out of two."
I think it was somebody in Africa Bambaataa's crew, right?
Something that it goes back and forth as to who.
It's like the naming of reggae because Toots likes to take credit, Joe Higgs likes to take credit. Cox and Dodd likes it. Yeah, I understand.
And you have to give all of them their due respect about it. So right. Okay.
Right.
Let's go.
And you bring
But
up
yeah, so
you bring up a great point, because it didn't happen in a vacuum, that it just sparked in the Bronx.
No.
I know that my brother-in-law Ian tells the story that, look, we were doing the same thing in Brooklyn, because again,
Yes.
Jamaicans were going all over the boroughs of New York, and they were bringing their culture and their dances everywhere. And
But Alicia, the point though, the huge change though came with Cool Herc, and who was in the crowd when Cool Herc switched it to the funk and the disco, and then those persons in that crowd, they just went out and but also revolutionized it with the mixer and being much, Cool is a legend, but he wasn't a great on the mic guy,
he would tell you he's not the MC guy. He wasn't into that.
Right.
He was into the music. He was all about playing the music. And as you say that, because I've sat down and I've talked with Cool Herc quite a few times.
Right.
And he really didn't like the disco.
No.
He had really wanted to do the reggae thing.
Of course. That's what he grew up on. That's what he grew up on. But people are hearing so much
influence from his neighborhood, where everybody was into the disco and the funk and all that other stuff. So he was just like, "Oh, yo, if we can't beat them, join them."
Exactly. And that was the point, because when he got to New York, they were like, "What is this music you playing? yo, let's hear some Commodores."
Right.
Yo,
that is so true.
It's a very intriguing story of how the marriage between all of these, or should I say, the offspring of reggae and all this other stuff, had created so much other genres that has taken exponential parts of. It's incredible when you really look at it.
And unfortunately, Rob.
And Jason, you explained it so well. Your articulation on it was so well. I mean, you didn't even have to talk any further.
Well, I mean, I grew up in this, so it's not that I'm intelligent. It's just my life. But the unfortunate thing is, I've described how punk rock came from this, hip hop came from this, also reggaeton. All three forms of music are towers of music forms around the world. Reggae has yet to plug into that, so we got to figure that out at some point. I'm just saying.
Well, I kind of disagree with you on that point.
No. When I say we're not, I'm talking about economically as an industry.
Okay.
I'm talking about economic.
We know reggae is pervasive throughout the world. From Japan to Europe to everywhere.
I know reggae music is the reason that Poland is independent from Russia. I know reggae music was instrumental in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
I mean, the first country that Nelson Mandela visited when he got out of jail is Jamaica. And we're like, why? And he's like, well, one, Jamaica was the first country to call for an embargo on South Africa. But more importantly, the music was the rebels that Nelson worked with. The music was their hope, was their light. The black people in South Africa were listening to Dennis Brown, a 16-year-old Dennis Brown, talking about equal rights. 16-year-old Dennis Brown was being played in South Africa, and an anthem for people for freedom. So that's the point. So I know that, but unfortunately, we have not turned that into an industry that benefits like how reggaeton and hip hop and punk rock have done.
Gotcha, which is so true.
And it is true, but there's something I want to add on to it, because if you think about it, it's sort of like the same time that Cool Herc was starting off, and there wasn't no real money to be made because it wasn't something that was, should I say, broadcast. Just like how hip hop wasn't even considered music at one point.
Oh, bro! I got to Atlanta in 1991, and hip hop still had not hit commercial radio.
Well, there you go.
Just to make your point.
There you go. So I think what happened was that being like how we have a lot of the. I was trying to make the point that Cool Herc, he should be somebody who should be getting paid for this. I really truly feel that. I mean, I've said that a lot of times on a lot of forums that we had. And I was like, yo, we should. I mean, it's good to give you homage about it, give him homage about it, but
Yeah, but take care of the man.
yes, he
Hands
should
down.
not have to worry about
Hands
anything.
down. Hands down.
Him a lot. The
Oh
same
yeah,
people who
Grandmaster
paved the
Caz.
way. They should be more than just get the homage about it. But I think they should be. It should be some. They should get some reparation. Let me put it that way. They should get some reparation.
Yo, Rob, I am completely with you. By the way, the other thing that we didn't mention, like, I remember when, coming from Jamaica, before I left Jamaica, honestly, like, for example, Cool Herc's ascension, even Patrick Ewing's ascension, like, we in Jamaica didn't know about these things because we didn't have cable yet. Only rich people had the dish. So we don't even know these things are happening. And then for people who don't know what a dish is, literally a satellite that was on top of somebody's house, and only rich people in Jamaica had that. But when I started like traveling, because I was on the Jamaica rugby team and Jamaica karate team, that's when I was starting to find out. And this was in the late 80s. I was starting to find out how Caribbean connection to these big things happening. And one of the first things I noticed, like in hip hop, like every either programming head, producer, a lot of the rappers, Chub Rock, especially someone, they're either Caribbean or they're Caribbean parents. Like all across the board. Even Kid from Kid and Play, like his father is Jamaican. And I was like, yo. And then when I really started to dig into it deep, and it's crazy, this is once again how politics. Because remember, I was telling you how all these people were mass moving from Jamaica in this period. And in the 70s, it accelerated, right? And so here's the real deal. In the 60s, the CIA was, into the early 70s, the CIA was trying to overthrow the Jamaican government, pumping guns into the country, training young kids of 10, 11, 12 to learn to shoot and all that. Violence, blah, blah, blah. One of the first things they did during that late 70s, early 80s, a lot of those people that the CIA worked with, they gave visas to go to America. And a lot of poor kids moving en masse with these people to America. They got involved with activities that, shall we say, not activities your parents wanted to get involved with.
Exactly.
But like Rob said, there was no money to be made on our stuff. So guess who had to fund parties, clubs, concerts? Who had to fund them? It was these guys that needed their money cleaned. So here's what ends up happening. People connected to these guys end up becoming the forefront of this new thing called hip hop. And their kids become rap artists. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, it blew my mind to see that whole thing develop. You know what I'm saying?
That's a unique twist. Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
No, he's just blowing my mind right now. Yeah.
Most definitely. So we've talked about the evolution of ska, reggae, hip hop. And I want to talk a little bit, although, as Jason and I were talking earlier, it's not an explosion, but we're also seeing a greater presence of reggae gospel. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. We know in the 1970s, and I know some members of the Grace Thrillers that came out that sang gospel songs of
Legend.
Church. But now we're seeing Positive, Rendell Positive. We're seeing, so many different people from all different types of countries as well. And it has also taken up in England because a lot of course, Caribbean folks live there as well. So tell us a little bit about gospel reggae and its influence now currently on the music scene. And as I was saying, it's being played here in America on Black gospel radio stations as well. So can you share with us that evolution?
So combination. So let's give respect to the Grace Thrillers that you mentioned earlier. And it's really important because when Grace, as everybody knows, the Christian realm is conservative. Mm-hmm. And when Grace Thrillers we're talking about, and Jamaica, for those who don't know, Jamaica has more churches per capita and per acreage than any other country in the world. Period. Right? And And for those who don't know, Baptists in Jamaica is not the Baptists here, because Baptists in Jamaica were people who fought against slavery, and was one of the reasons why there's emancipation around the world in the British Empire. So it's like it's a different evolution, like in terms of church. Just to put that out there. Anyway, thing is though, they're still conservative, and you have to understand, in terms of anybody who's established in 1917, in terms of anybody who's established, who have money, anybody who's doing something with them life. Reggae music is some dirty people music that you don't listen to. That's full of slackness, and we don't have that around here. We don't play that in our house. Like I said, reggae music didn't play on the radio until 1988, just regularly. Anyway, so Grace Thrillers in this moment decides to do gospel in reggae. Worse than that, they took what the Africans, and in Jamaica we both had slaves, and a good part of the country free, especially the Maroons, and they took their spiritual songs and put them on a reggae beat. Gospel. The powers that be were upset, but they didn't stop. They did it, and I mean, and as far as the people are concerned, we loved it, and it brought a lot of people into Christianity through it. Anyway, I just want to give them props, because we don't have what I'm about to talk about that without what Grace Thrillers did. Anyway, in the 80s now, dancehall is evolving. In the 80s, dancehall is dominated by slackness and gun lyrics. Shabba Ranks with the slackness is one of the most, Shabba Ranks and Cutty Ranks, one of the most famous when it comes to gun lyrics, and I mean slackness, sorry, and Ninja Man gun lyrics, like that's Super Cat gun lyrics, like those the pillars of dancehall, and of course clashing. Now, one of the biggest clash people is a guy named Lieutenant Stitchie, and another one is Papa San. Now, they're amazing at clash. Not only they're amazing at clash, they're amazing at speed rapping. Like, they were in the Guinness World Book of Records several times for the amount of words they would say in 1 minute, right? And they are wicked. Like, they when it comes to clashing, they were murdering people. So I bring that up to say that at this point in the middle 80s, these guys are highly respected in a space of gunman them, like macho man, like, yo, Lieutenant Stitchie, Papa San, them, right? So all of a sudden, though, Papa San's brother gets killed in the rude boy foolishness. Yeah, that's a Dirtsman. When they get me hot this year, what am I gonna do? Hold me. Yeah, he gets killed. And Papa San is devastated. And he decides to reevaluate your life. And do remember, the religion that Jamaica creates is Rastafari. And Rastafari runs our music as a foundation. So, that's another important point, right? So like Christianity and gospel is not really the conversations you have in dancehall and reggae at this point, right? So all of a sudden, Stitchie, who has like 8 number ones, an American record label is coming to Jamaica to talk to Stitchie, Lieutenant Stitchie. Hey, you have all of these records selling in Japan and England. We want to sign you. Lieutenant Stitchie was going to be the first commercial artist that we were going to see promoted, like how we would eventually see Shabba. Yeah, before Shabba, it was going to be Stitchie. It was supposed to be Stitchie. In the middle of this, at the same time as Papa San is devastated by his brother's death, Stitchie decides, I don't want to do dancehall lyrics anymore. I don't want to do what I've been doing. I want to do gospel on dancehall. I'm turning my life to Christ. I don't know what the catalyst was why he did that, but he went there. And so he turned his back on this international deal, which is unprecedented for a dancehall artist. And somehow he decides to go out there and make these dancehall songs, gospel dancehall songs. Of course, the entire church community is like, this is blaspheme. The Rastaman them vex with him. And then Papa San comes out after him. There's a church called Church on the Rock, which was the only place that they could perform. because nobody wanted them. I'm not even joking. And then Carlene Davis got involved. Carlene Davis, who had hits in the past, she started to come into the gospel. And when she came in, people were like, huh? Because although she's not, she wasn't a gospel artist before, she was your romance singer, your Whitney Houston, shall we say? Like the nice girl next door, and she's running with these guys, like that started to change the image. And then Tommy Cohen, and this is very important, Tommy Cohen, who is one of the brainchilds of Reggae Sunsplash, which is the most important concert in reggae music. He was the MC. Yes, indeed. Like he did it every year. He and four other persons who are created Reggae Sunsplash, because we didn't have a big platform for reggae music at the time. And so he is respected. He was a Rasta, dreadlocks to his ankles, Rasta. Tommy Cohen becomes a Christian. That's like an earthquake in the entire entertainment business in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yo, if Tommy Cohen is going this route, maybe we should listen. And he creates the first reggae gospel concert. So many people come out, they had to move it to the stadium. It was so international, it was so huge. Him coming on board was instrumental in this whole thing. And then it just started to grow and grow. And Papa San and Stitchy, who are just amazing performers. Like, I don't, for those who don't know dancehall, I don't know what to compare them to, like, in terms of hip hop. But somebody who's already, just their style is so prolific that they're going to have number one hits no matter what. They clash it. They're the best at clashing. And their vocal dexterity is ridiculous. And the two of them are now the forefront, and because they succeed now, and they're converting in the dance hall, they're converting gunmen, they're converting like people who just wouldn't even be in the church. They're just like doing that work. Chevelle Franklin, who just got a signed international deal because of Dancehall Queen, the song. She's like, no, I'm doing this thing on time now, because her voice is now the thing that makes the people that want to discredit it, that like it's nothing, when they hear her sing, because she got a big voice. For those who don't know, like, she's a dancehall queen for life. That voice. That just changed the game completely, and it becomes something that actually sells, because her CD Joy, like there are even certain tracks in there. You have to ask yourself, wait, is this Whitney Houston or is this Chevelle? Like, wow, like that kind of voice. So like those three artists, their success, that suddenly changes the whole game. And like a whole bunch of people start to come in, and then he started having people in the radio in the US start to play it. And then with this kind of response, all of a sudden we're hearing from Kirk Franklin, Donnie McClurkin, like the Winans, like, hey, we want to do some work with you. And then there are collabs happening between those artists and dancehall artists. As a matter of fact, Kirk signed Papa San to his label, like all that. And it's amazing because it's its own thing, and it's huge. So now Stitchy will be in Germany, and like stadium is packed, or he's in Lagos and the stadium is packed, and it's just gospel dancehall all day long. Yeah.
Now, Jason, the question from the audience is, who are the creators of Reggae Sunsplash? So you mentioned Tommy, Chin. Who are the other? Cohen.
Okay, so there's of course Tommy Cohen. There's Ron Burke, who is Sharon Burke's brother. Why you gonna ask me that, man? Put me on the spot.
No, that's good. That's good though. But so
Ronnie Burke. Yes, for them. Synergy Promotions was the name of their company.
So, I mean, as someone said, that was an entire history lesson. I mean, I didn't want to interrupt you at all. Powerful.
I'm loving it.
I don't apologize.
Man, don't apologize.
I'm loving it.
Amazing information that I've never heard before. So
exactly, I'm loving it.
So there's a couple of places that I kind of wanted to go from there. Is you definitely talked about reggae gospel, and I wanted to ask if the two of you are familiar with, and we talked about the foundation of reggae and the Caribbean music is the drum. It's the African drum.
Yeah.
Are there other African spiritual systems that you're aware of in your respective countries? That music is still very important. We in Jamaica have kumina. We have
Poco.
Poco. Thank you. That's the word. Trinidad has Shango Baptist. So there are different African spirit, and of course you said reggae with Naya Bingi. It'd be interesting to hear about the Maroons and the music that they play as well. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that in our Pan-African lens, how African spirituality is still prevalent on the islands and through their music.
All right. So, wait, Rob, did you want to say anything before I say anything?
No, I love listening to you, man. Go ahead. You take the reign, man. Take the reins, man.
All right. So, all right. Context now. So, just to give you guys context. So, no disrespect to anybody from the United States, but this is reality. The Africans dropped off in the Caribbean are the Africans that were the most unruly for the Europeans that they couldn't handle. So they dropped them off in the Caribbean for them. So this is very important why I say this. They literally held on to their traditions. And from the moment they set foot on the land, they were fighting. Which is why 1/3 of Jamaica was always free and all of Haiti eventually became free. Because from they stood it. And I bring up these two specifically, and Cuba should be included in that conversation as well. But I'm bringing up these two specifically because Yoruba, Iba, Fulani, Ashanti, those spiritual traditions were brought in by those people from West Africa, just from Senegal all the way up through Nigeria, and they brought with them the now it's different tribes now, and see that's the thing
Those are
about
the tribes, yeah.
these are all different tribes with their own unique traditions, spiritual traditions. That being said, once they got there, they mixed that all up together, which is where you have what we're talking about, what some people call voodoo, what we call obe in Jamaica, and the musically poco, nabbing, and so on.
And
No,
Santeria and Cuba.
Santeria and Cuba, right? That's why I said Cuba is included in this. So recognize the context. Always free, and the Africans in Jamaica and the Africans in Haiti, they were always interacting with each other. As a matter of fact, because the Africans in Jamaica had been more successful in the beginning because they were beating the best army in the world at the time, which was the British Army. They actually went over to train the Africans in Haiti. And when the whole Haitian Revolution went on, it was the Africans in Jamaica and Haiti combined were fighting the French troops. And what is not spoken about a lot is that United States, Britain, Spain all realized, wait a minute, if France loses, then our slaves might riot. So they weren't just at the end of that revolution, they weren't only fighting France, they were fighting the US, they were fighting Britain and Spain and France all together. And we're still kicking their butt. Just want to make that point. Anyway, those people held on to the traditions. So one important part of all, so what they held on to were the similarities of the different spiritual traditions. And one of those similarities was what would eventually become Poco, would become Nyabingi, Pocomania, Kumina, is the use of the drums in a certain manner. That is a spiritual conversation with the so on entities that existed that they were praying to in West African cultures. And of course, that would evolve into Mento, which would evolve into Ska, which would evolve into Reggae. But it started coming from the spiritual similarities of all of those tribes that were represented between Jamaica and Haiti specifically. And that's what we say now. So we say Zouk, Kompa, all that. That comes directly from the drumming, which is a way of conversing with the different deities that were in those tribes and villages.
Oh my goodness. Our time is coming almost to a close. Gentlemen, can you stay on for just a little bit longer?
Yes.
If you don't mind. Okay, great. Well, and Dr. Ojolade is right on time. So can we just have a few more minutes, Dr. Ojolade? Okay. It has been an amazing conversation. And so I wanted to kind of just circle back then. Rob, I want to ask you, you said your family's from Grenada.
Yes.
Yes. So talk to us about those traditions that you grew up with musically in
Okay.
your household.
So like I said, my family's from Grenada, but we also from this little island off of Grenada called Carriacou. And
Mm.
one of the traditions that we have there is we call it the big drum dance.
Yes.
And it's you dress in your African garbs, and the women all dance around and the men are playing the drums, and it gets spiritual when you see it. It actually becomes spiritual, and you actually get the feeling of how it must have been back when we was in Africa, back in West Africa. We're coming into it, and it's an amazing thing. We have that. Unfortunately, like most Caribbean islands, has been influenced by the French, so we have a lot of French names, and there's a lot of French colonization that has been intertwined with it. But still, in all, that's something that just resonate a lot with me. The thing called the big drum dance that we do every year, and it's a tradition that I'm going to hold on to as well.
Awesome. Yes, big drum is definitely a big part. And of course, the traditions are different yet similar because the Eastern Caribbean, Trinidad, as you said, Grenada, and all those places definitely held on to big drum, steel pan, versus Puerto Rico versus the Western Caribbean is
Correct.
very different, and Bahamas and such. So, wow. One last question I wanted to ask. Jason, you talked about being foreign minded. Can you kind of just, for those who are not of Caribbean descent, talk a little bit about that and circling it back again with the colonizer's mind of trying to hold on to what, as you said, the US always sounded better and Europe sounded better than the actual local traditions. Why don't you kind of talk about that in music and the radio specifically?
Okay. Wait. I want to make sure I got the question right. Repeat the question one more time, please.
So basically, you said why people foreign minded because they always want to listen to American music and different music from outside the country.
Right.
Than very instead of being proud of their own music that comes from within their country. So in terms of colonization, I wanted to make that linkage. And so to talk a little bit more about why people prefer things outside their country rather than inside their country.
Oh, okay. So, okay. No, I get you. All right. Oh, by the way, real quick, to answer the question, Tony Johnson, Don Green, Ron Burke, and John Wakeling. Those are the founders. Those are the founders of Reggae Sunsplash, 1977. So I'm going to start with the disgusting results of not appreciating our culture. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there's a big controversy because Michael B. Jordan, who has no Caribbean connection, was trademarking the word Juve. That's all it was. Why haven't we trademarked Juve yet? Fortunately for us, he who does not believe in the exploitation of people, he said, "Yo, I didn't know. Sorry, boss." And something is being worked out to change the situation. Before that, steel pan, which was created in Trinidad and Tobago, was owned. The trademark was owned for 20 years by two white boys in Ohio. Why is that? And the only reason they let go of the trademark is because they couldn't figure out how to make money off of steel pan. And of course, last but not least, why is it Jamaica did not have reggae on the radio regularly until 1988? They had to get bum rushed by people who were following Peter Tosh's suggestion before it finally happened. And lo and behold, oh my God, after we had it regular on the radio, we suddenly started to have dancehall hits internationally on a regular basis. Wow, what a crazy concept. We appreciate our things, great things happen. All right, sorry. That's the negative side of it. The problem with colonization, which has happened all over the world, is that it taught us that Europeans were the best. And that everything European, everything good is European. Everything from us is garbage. And we have continued with that mentality to this day. So therefore, we leave ourselves open. Like to this day, for whatever reason, the biggest reggae concert in the world was done by UB40. Exactly. Right? Not Bob Marley. Not, you understand what I'm saying? So and I'm sorry, there's more of us than there of them. And when I say us, I mean people of color, black people around the world. So therefore, it should be a no-brainer that when something is created by black people, that it's automatically supported by more people than anything else. No, that's not the case, because a majority of us are not supporting our own. And that comes from that colonization that was beat into us. Even though, in terms of the Caribbean, there were free areas from the get-go, it still had an impact. Because it's not just the physical coercion. It's not just the immediate moment when your foot gets cut off and you're called Toby. It is also the messaging, the constant messaging. And one thing both North America and Europe pulled off more than anybody else in the world is how to manipulate communication and the messaging that comes out there. And the messaging has consistently been white people good, black people bad. And everything from black people is bad. And so we just don't appreciate our own. So when we create the steel pan, we are not thinking like, wait, this is a product. I'm going to use Jamaica as an example. When we did reggae music, no Jamaican company sponsored anything from the reggae industry at any point. The first sponsorship we really got is when Shabba Ranks get a #1 tune, and then American companies were sponsoring Shabba Ranks, not Jamaican companies. It's just real. Not even the alcohol companies that are making crazy money at the reggae concerts, not even them were sponsoring a reggae artist.
Wow.
Oh, thank you. On that note, we'll hear from our executive director, Dr. Ojolade, Ifetaya Ojolade. Thank you for allowing us to have this discussion today. And thank you to our esteemed guests, Jason Skywalker and Rob Swinger. So I'll turn it over to you.
I just talk a lot.
Your Yankee accent and said Rob Swinger. Okay, so well, first of all, Jason, you are just like this whole knowledge base. Like I'm like, okay, this is a straight up history lesson.
Yes, walking encyclopedia. Yeah, man.
He's an encyclopedia. That's what he is. He's the new Google. I'm gonna call you Joogle. I'm gonna call you Joogle.
If you want to know anything about Caribbean music, come to this man right here. And Rob Swinger, it was just it was good hearing you. And even the part I didn't know the island. What's the island off Grenada?
Grenada is called Carriacou.
And I've heard of it. And then when you said that, I was like, oh, it's an island. So everything is coming together. Okay. And so I am the one, so let me confess, I was the one that asked about Reggae Sunsplash. Let me connect myself to this conversation as an African-American that grew up in Los Angeles. My best friend in high school, Jamaican parents, her father, before he died, was Tony Johnson.
Wow.
I went to Reggae Sunsplash.
Wow.
As a high school student, I'm getting goosebumps. I didn't even understand the significance of what I was experiencing. And I was like, wow.
I'm just glad you didn't get too high that you didn't remember it.
And I remember my best friend, she would always be like, oh, Reggae Sunsplash. And she was telling me her dad, was one of the founders and she really wanted me to go. She was so excited. And it was an overwhelming in a good way experience for me. And so when you brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, I did that.
What year did you go? Do you remember?
You about to date me? No.
I'm trying to figure out which one you went to.
It would have been in the late 80s.
Okay. Let's do this. Do you remember Dennis Brown closing down the show in a white?
She probably wouldn't have known artists. Yeah,
I wouldn't have known the artist. Because remember, so and this goes back into context, which I think is really important, and we have to continue to have these conversations with people of African descent, because so I'm connecting with my friend who I know her parents are Jamaican, but I was saying this to Alethea the other day. If you don't go to somebody's house, and I mean, I would go to her house and you see that they would eat food that was different from me, but you don't really kind of get a context. So outside of Bob Marley or outside of understanding dancehall, I didn't have artist names, so I don't know who was there. Right. It was a big party, and I was a teenager, and so I was enjoying it. So it would have been probably, I could tell you, it was between 86 and 89, so somewhere in between there.
Now, if it was 88, that was the performance that year Shabba Ranks performed that year. That was the performance that took Shabba from #1 artist in Jamaica to an international superstar.
And I don't want to make something up, but I feel like maybe Shabba Ranks was there, because I knew who Shabba Ranks was. He might have been there, but I don't know. Like I said, I was a teenager, but I just think that it's interesting because you took me all the way back to and having this experience with my best friend.
That's crazy that you knew Tony Johnson. That's what's crazy about this conversation. Like most people don't even know Tony Johnson. Like people in Jamaica, because he was a quiet guy behind the scenes. He was the guy that did the money thing. Like he's the one that, like everybody else had their skill set. Like Tommy was the man on front. Like Ronnie was the guy that organized all the artists, like had the brainchild what this would look like. Tony, money guy. He found the money to make it happen, and nobody really saw him. So to hear somebody go, I know Tony Johnson, I'm like, yo, that's
and
amazing.
I won't even say, like, look, don't let me be like, oh, I knew him like that. Like I was his daughter's friend, and we were teenagers, and so I remember him. So yes, definitely kind of a behind the scenes, a quiet man. You could tell, looking back, I'm thinking you could tell like he was really smart. I'm not surprised you're saying that he's a money man, right. But I think that that's interesting, kind of pull this together of like the impact. So what I'm telling you, and now that I think about it, that's actually the first concert I ever went to.
Wow, that's how you started?
Right.
That's
pretty awesome.
That's how you started.
First concert I ever went to. Yes.
That's quite something to live up to after that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was powerful. Like, yeah, now I'm getting goosebumps. So listen, brothers, thank you for coming and helping us to celebrate what is really important. When Alethea said, oh, well, let's do music, I was thinking it's important because I like music and I like to dance. But as I'm listening to everything that you all are talking about, I'm like, whoa, deeper than I ever even thought.
Well, once again, everything we're talking about is literally a Pan-African conversation.
Yes,
it's a Black conversation,
mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we are in the existence of the 600 years. People like to start at 1619, but 1400 was when Portugal and Spain started moving out, and they understood quintessentially that their population was too small to handle this African continent. So they began the narrative that this African continent created savages. That's where it began. I'm sorry for any of my Portuguese and Spanish friends, but that's where it started.
That's
the truth.
And we're still, unfortunately, we're still in the era of this 600-year-old conversation where Black is bad and white is good. So we don't have the conversations. Like, we don't say, yo, if it wasn't for Haiti, America would not be free. It would be a French country. And that's real. I don't care what nobody wants to say. It's just reality. And if you study your history, you will know this. But now we don't want to study that because it makes Europeans look like they were dependent on Black people. You know, I'm just saying.
I think also what I'm taking away from the conversation is we all have to, I'm a psychologist, and so I'm always going to bring the mental health piece in. We always have to remember the power of music for people of African descent. Global.
Very
like
true.
You don't have nothing else. I told my daughter leaving this morning, she was like, I'm not feeling it. She was on going to work saying, I'm not feeling it. I said, look, turn on some music in that car and get yourself pumped up. It's the thing. If you have nothing else,
you're right.
That can be a source of healing.
You're right.
Yeah. So my brothers, Rob Swinga, Jason Skywalker, and then my sister that always has my back in front, Sister Alethea Bonello. Thank you again for this conversation.
I enjoyed it. I was speaking about things that I witnessed, so I enjoyed it.
Well, you witnessed a lot, and I just witnessed it through you. So I did it vicariously through you, and I thank you. I definitely thank you. I would like to thank you, both ladies, for even inviting me. It was more than a privilege. It was an honor. I've got a full education today. Education.
Okay.
And honestly, like,
thank you all.
I have to agree with you about the mental aspect of it, because you heard that description I talked about where, you know, the CIA was pumping in things to overthrow the Jamaican government. So I grew up in one of those communities like that. And I could name a set of people who are now actually successful who came from those communities. Anyway, what kept me going in them every time was, like I said, the music. And I was blessed that my father worked at the radio station. So I got all these records. That's how I ended up being a DJ. And in front of my house, with this open area, was where a sound system, we talk about the sound system that goes around, would come and play. And hearing that music just used to lift me every time, period. So you're right. Our music, it does lift us if we allow it to.
Yes.
The foundation of the drum. Remember the foundation of the drum.
And when you think of the drum, when you think of that bass, and then it just get in your body, like even when you just trying to be mad and start getting in your body, you're like, what?
And by the way, that's why the sound system looks the way it does, because it wants you to feel that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as we say, whole a vibe, you know?
Whole a vibe.
Yes. Yes.
All right, everyone. And for those of you that are listening, do me a favor and share this, like this. We are here every Friday hanging out, having conversations, talking about how people of African descent are going to heal in terms of mental health. And we look at that in all kinds of ways. And we just had this whole conversation of understanding the history of Caribbean music and the power of it and the power of healing our people. So thank you. Take care.
Thank you, guys.